Well, to talk more about this latest search, we're joined now by a British investigative journalist, Tony Gosling. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks for coming on. What do you make of this story, then? Is this more paranoia or is this a credible threat, do you think?
Well, it's a bit like the Swedish sub-scares in the spring, isn't it? And also, there seems to be quite a lot of propaganda at the moment around. The Brussels scare as well. What's happening is journalists are simply reporting what the government, the military, the police are telling them without actually questioning and without often being given any evidence, and the same is the case here. I mean, we've heard the Admiral Mark Ferguson, and British admirals seem to be increasing at the same rate as British ships seem to be decreasing, the numbers of them. But he's talked about an arc of steel that the Russians are putting round from the Baltic to the Mediterranean. Well, I haven't seen any real evidence of this. This apparently is part of the same scare story. But that arc of steel, if you ask me, is the arc of steel going round Russia from the Baltic round through Ukraine into the Caucasus and round to Afghanistan. US bases seem to be popping up all over the place, and NATO bases. So if there's any arc of steel, I don't think it's really an Atlantic one. But I've got a suggestion, really, for the British Admiralty, for Mark Ferguson. I hope he's watching at the moment. Why don't you tell the Russians where you think the sub was 10 days ago, and the Russians will tell you where the nearest sub actually really was. And let's focus on ISIS, shall we? That's the real threat.
Tony, also, I mean, they've had to call in help from France and also Canada on this one. Is that seen as an embarrassment, or perhaps is this sort of politically astute, considering we're going to learn more about sort of Britain's defence budget over the next coming days?
Well, we certainly are, aren't there? There's a big tussle been going on over the last week and a half, particularly after the French attacks, with the military-industrial complex and the arms firms making sure that they secure as big a slice as possible of our taxpayers' money here in Britain, whilst we're in a situation where we've got nearly 1 million people homeless. Anyone that strolls around most cities now in Britain will find little tent cities popping up here and there in the parks. And we've got what George Osborne seems to be on a kind of economic kamikaze mission at the moment to destroy Britain's economy. We've got the biggest government borrowing for 6 years. His plan is quite clearly not working, and the military don't want to be part of those cuts. But yeah, like I say, lots of propaganda at the moment, not anywhere near enough questioning by our journalists about some basic things like, the national debt is never going to be paid off. So what are we going to do? That question is never raised. And this submarine stuff is all a convenient distraction from this, the tent cities, the unpayable debt. And why don't we, I think, one of the things would be useful to do would be to look over at little Iceland to see what they've done. They look after their poor people, they look after their elderly people, and they put their top 26 banksters, and I'm talking about criminal bankers who are now running the City of London, in jail. I think actually Cameron and Osborne could take a few lessons from them and start looking after people in Britain that really need help from our taxpayers' money, because we don't want it fueling a new Cold War.
OK, Tony, nice to talk to you. Good to get your views on this. That was investigative journalist Tony Gosling from the UK. Thank you.
Thank you.